What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring you everything fresh in entertainment. I'm your host, Drew Brumfield, and joining me again is Seth. Seth, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, coming fresh off of work and a little tired, but not too tired where I can't talk about Bioshock.
Hell yeah, I like the fresh reference. And joining us again, we liked him so much on the Last of Us podcast, we had to bring him back. It is Will King. How you doing, Will?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for having me back. Feeling pretty good. I've had a day off, so that was nice.
Hell yeah. We love not working. It's my day off too, which is why I'm able to do this podcast. And before we start on this podcast, I'm going to give a quick shout out to myself, because we can't shout out yourself. Who can you shout out? For those who do not know, we have not only a YouTube page, but we also have a TikTok. Yes, we're trendy like that. This is where if you're like, podcasts are too long, I don't have 2 hours to sit here and listen to them talk about Bioshock, I have a solution for you, because we have 30-second videos either of just audio taken from this podcast or just us messing around that I edit, sometimes Seth edits, and that is up on our YouTube page, and we also have a TikTok page. Links should be in the description. Go follow them. The most recent one, as of recording this podcast, is one about Jedi Survivor, which is fun and trendy and current, and that video is doing really well. I hope it continues doing well. So, enough self-promotion there. As we have already alluded to before, we are here talking about the Bioshock series, specifically just Bioshock 1 and 2. We'll get to Infinite probably in a later podcast, but that's a lot to fit into one. But yeah, this is kind of a little bit of a late review on the first 2 Bioshock games. How do they kind of stand up today, and what are our general thoughts about it? So I think I'll probably just start off right there with just general thoughts. And also kind of how you guys got into the Bioshock series. So Will, you're the special guest, so I'll start with you. How did you first get introduced to the series, and what are kind of just some general thoughts about it?
So my introduction to the series was when my mom took me to GameStop in 2007. And yeah, they just had a ton of copies of Bioshock, and I was like, that fella looks cool. He's got a drill for a hand. And I picked it up, and it was wonderful. Very much easily my favorite game, probably persisting until Skyrim came out in 2011.
Okay, dang. So very high praise.
Oh yeah, huge fan of that game.
Okay. Seth, what about you? When did you first get introduced to the series?
It was kind of similar. It was around 2007, 2008. Got a 360. All about getting what was the best games on at the time. And I had a lot of friends that were recommending me Bioshock, so they actually loaned me a copy. One of my friends, Gabe, loaned me a copy of his a Bioshock 1. And I took it home, and I basically played through it all in 1 week, and I fell in love with it. And from there, I was just a big Bioshock fan. I was basically playing every one of them. Well, really, there's only 3 that came out, but I played almost all of them at release except for 2. So really just Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. But yeah. I love those games. They're a lot of fun.
Definitely. I am the odd one out, because I actually didn't get in the series until much later. Basically around late high school. No, it was more early college. I think I was a sophomore. But I was just on the store, and I noticed that there was a sale on the remastered collection, and it was to the point where literally I could get all 3 games and all the DLCs for cheaper than buying Bioshock 2 at the time, which I found funny. And so I just kind of got all 3 of them and just started working my way through them, and I'm just these are still really good. Because I played what kind of these games inspired games like Dishonored and other similar things that I should have written down, but I can't think of it right now. But
Did you play Prey?
Seth did. I will eventually.
Yeah, I did play Prey. Yeah.
But this kind of style.
They inspired games like Prey, well, not really Deus Ex. Oh, that's weird, because it's there was Deus Ex, the original, which probably inspired this game partially.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'll say this: the prequel / reboots of Deus Ex probably took some inspiration from this game, so we could just call it that.
Probably. That was a terrible introduction, but these games were like most people knew who Bioshock was, and it was a big name on its own. Like I knew plenty of people that were like huge fans. I have a friend Dylan who like loves this series to death, and I was just like, yeah, I'll try it out. And I also was just like, even like for a game that came out like you guys said the first one came out in 2007, 8, something like that.
I think it came out in 2006.
2006. Am I even? But like still like
2007. But yeah, you're right. It might have been because it was like this is like such an old thing. I remember
2000
it was like
August 21st, 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, 07.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if you remember this, Will, but I think it was like a demo because like I remember I would be a kid going into Target. And there would be like always like a video or demo of Bioshock going on where it's like the Big Daddy or whatever.
You know,
see, now I never acted well, so I never got to go to Target.
Oh,
Seth,
no.
I know. Okay, Seth, I know what you're talking about because I always saw this game in like advertisements and stuff, and like just
Yeah,
on
like the
in
Xbox
the background.
magazine would always have it on the cover or something.
Oh
like,
yeah. Now I remember the Xbox magazine.
Yeah, so like that's where I remember a lot of like Bioshock 1 being at. They hyped the shit out of that game. I remember that much.
No, great marketing, honestly, which is a weird. We don't talk about that a lot, but yeah.
It's funny because like you're not really I guess the big appeal of this game is on the cover art of Bioshock 1 and Bioshock 1 anyways, you don't play as that character. That is that's such an iconic like figure in the game.
Yeah, the Big Daddy is just kind of like it's their mascot, it's their staple. It was even what was in the most famous PlayStation game, PlayStation All-Stars. That was it. It wasn't Jack as the representative or anyone else. It was a Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Which also like
did you even know the character's name was Jack until like midway through the game?
No.
Yeah, I did not realize. Yeah, someone else called me Jack, and I was like, "Who the heck are they talking to right now?" Oh, me. Oh, that's me.
Like, oh, I'm actually a character.
Yeah, I'm not just faceless man. But yeah. Also, I just want to like point out that I hate like back like in the early 2000s it wasn't as bad, but nowadays I hate that the main enemy is called a Big Daddy. Because that word
that has not aged well.
That is awful.
That's definitely problematic.
That is.
I think it's aged perfectly fine. It's aged even better now.
It is.
It's aged like a fine wine.
It is aged like milk, is what it's aged like. That is awful.
Considering like the amount of like thirsty people on Twitter who like gallivant over things like I remember a couple of years ago where they were all over Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil Village. Like, yes, this is the perfect audience for this. People want to call their monsters Big Daddy or Big Mom or
it is a suit of armor with a drill. And some people just got turned on by what I said, and that's a problem.
That is some people's kink. It's just like big suit of armor is like, that is my fetish.
I remember in college there was this girl that like someone found out that she had like this like I don't know, this like daddy themed Tumblr. And so someone got her a Bioshock poster that said "Daddy is so strong," and it was one of the worst things that I've ever been a part of.
Oh my god. Okay,
Jesus.
I'm switching topics. Now. I'm gonna switch.
That did it. Okay.
I'm gonna get on you. But
Like,
I am.
That's a nail in the coffin on this one.
I mean, I'm the one that brought up this topic, so I can't be mad at anyone. But yeah, So as we said, this game was like very like influential, and it kind of like it didn't start this genre, but it's kind of what put it on the map and started a lot of tropes for this genre. And I really wish there was a better name for it. But this kind of version of just like, yes, it's a shooter, but you also have like powers, and it's this really cool like first-person experience that is called immersive sim, according to Seth. And
I'll just jump in on this. I think kind of what makes Bioshock so influential is that it's not that it's like the first immersive sim or even the one that set up all these tropes, but I think it was the one that like brought it to the console audience. Because most immersive sims before this game, like Deus Ex, the Thief series, Ultima Underworld, Arx Fatalis, all this stuff, only existed on PC. It was mostly like the only people who got to play immersive sims were nerds on PC, basically. And then they were like, hey, we can bring this to console, mess with the controls, make it like easier access to kind of explain to players like, hey, this is your powers, this is how it works in the world. And then basically ever since then, you can see its influence everywhere in a lot of different kinds of games.
And this game has led to like some of my favorite games, like the Dishonored series and Deathloop, and a lot of like those things. And it's just been it's a really cool genre that. But goddamn, Seth, I agree with you that like yes, this is what the developers call the game, so this is what it should be called. That's fine, all. But all I'm saying is it's a really stupid name. I think immersive sim is the lamest thing you could call this.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this game was. I was kind of alluding to with the PC thing.
Yeah.
Like this game was made by nerds, and all respect to people like Warren Spector and all of them who kind of helped create these kinds of games and coined these phrases. And they probably would fess up to it too. They are also nerds, and so they're calling this like a game this nerdy title. Like it's immersive sim, short for immersive simulation. And it doesn't even have to be about guns or powers. The idea is just that with these kinds of games, players can have so many options in the world. There's so much of a high level of interactivity in the world. Like you can be sneaky, you can parkour around, you maybe have powers, you can fight enemies, you can talk to them, you can like do a bunch of different things with interactive systems. And that's why they call them like immersive sims, because they wanted to get as close as they could to allowing the player the most amount of like choice in approaching a situation.
I won't harp on it too much because I don't know a better name to call it. And also, I just kind of thought about this. Like, to be fair, my favorite kind of game is what's called a player action game, which, if you really think about it, describes literally every single game that's ever happened.
You know, and when he was describing immersive simulation, I was like, that's a video game.
Yeah, that's just that's just that's just what every video game is.
Fancy way of saying video game.
That's all.
They really coined that term.
I think it's just because
this is capitalism. Capitalism at its finest.
Well, like no, I think it's because it's the level of amount of choice that you have with it, though. Because most games are going to like railroad you into a specific play style. Like there's no like Devil May Cry, for example. There's no sneaky option in Devil May Cry. You can't sneak around your enemies. You can't talk with them. That's where like the whole player choice kind of comes from. And I agree with Drew that like these names are kind of. I feel like most genre names are stupid because like player action or even calling it character action games is kind of a dumb name. The term I've seen like coined by like one reviewer, Ben Yahtzee Croshaw, is call them spectacle fighters, which is like, that actually sums it up way better than character action game.
Make that guy come up with a better name for Bioshock, or like this
So,
kind of
Seth,
game.
would you say that immersive sims emphasize replayability?
Yeah, I would say
as
so.
As a distinction from traditional or from non-immersive, from whatever else there is.
Yeah, basically. I think that they are all about like making the world so much loaded with detail and reactivity that you can play it that way. I will use one of the like anecdotes that I think it was Warren Spector who coined, where he basically wanted to take the opposite approach with open worlds, which is like open worlds are massive land masses you explore, but there's like very little depth to one area, where he said like, I want to make an open world that's the size of a city block, but there's insane amount of depth to it. So it's just like, yes, you don't have that much to explore, but what is there's just so many layers to peel back.
I could see it. Yeah, I can see the vision now of this. I will also say, as you guys were describing it, it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite things about the first two of these games is that the reason that like most of the time you're talking to other people, it's through like radio boxes or like other places outside of like your field of view, or like the characters behind some like piece of glass, is because you have the ability to just shoot, and there would be so many times where the developers like, please don't just like kill every NPC that you see. Like, please just let us tell the story, because most players probably just go on a murdering spree every time they met a new person.
See, no, that's bad devs taking the choice out of my hand. I want to be a murder hobo.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, like they have to and I would say, weirdly enough, I love Bioshock. Bioshock might be the most restrictive of all the immersive sims.
It was
that
one of
we've
the
mentioned
earlier
so far.
ones. Yeah.
Well, it's not that it's earlier. Like I said, I think what makes it so successful is it streamlined it. It made it popular with audiences.
Yeah.
It may not be the most in-depth, quote unquote, as like other immersive sims, but it resonated with audiences so much more because it was more accessible.
I don't know, Seth. I don't know. Fucking hell, I messed up the joke. I was going to make a joke about how much depth it has because it's in water, and then I couldn't think of it. I just messed up the joke so bad.
There's a joke somewhere in there. We just have to put it together.
Oh, wow. I stuttered and messed up. Wow. 4 years of broadcasting school just down the drain in that one moment. Okay, let's just move on to the actual talking about specifics in Bioshock 1. And kind of like before you get into like the deep story or the weapons or the plasmids or all that, I think what really drew people into this was the atmosphere, because it's this underwater city. There's like a lot of things have imitated, but like Bioshock has this very unique style that makes it stand out from a lot of other games. This like 1960s or 20s style, but it's, at the bottom of the ocean. It's a very out there idea, but it's very quote unquote immersive. We came back with the pun.
Some listeners might correct me, but I'm pretty sure the art style in the game is called Art Deco. So my sister told me. Okay, all right. Thanks for backing me up.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
But yeah, what is your kind of thoughts on, the atmosphere, the art style, this Art Deco style, as you just found out?
I would say beautifully claustrophobic.
That's a good way. That's a good description.
It just kind of freaked me out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Particularly like the tunnels where like you have to like go through and you can see the water and like feel the depth, and I think you're passing through. This might be in the first one, it might be in the second one, but there's like you see a Big Daddy like working on some stuff outside, and I'm like, well, good thing he's got his suit on him.
Yeah.
Because I could not escape from this place if I wanted to.
If you have like thalassophobia, where you're like afraid of like deep sea, like ocean and all that, you probably shouldn't play this game.
I don't think people would start this game. I don't think they run away from this game.
Maybe this is the perfect game for you to play. Maybe it'll help you conquer your fears.
Maybe.
Your therapist recommends it, maybe.
It's just take baby steps. Play Bioshock. You'll learn to be okay with the ocean.
Just play. It's like, Doc, I can't get past this one area. That's because you're fear. No, that's because I'm bad at video games.
It's like, come on, man. It's like, don't be afraid. Don't be a big baby. Be a big daddy. Play the game.
Oh my god, I hate that. But yeah, the game really like stands out in like that art style, and there hasn't really been something that like can emulate it well. Bioshock, still to this day, it's so unique in like that approach of just like, and that's really what drives you in, is this world and all this backstory. Like, I'll try to be broad with the plot, because also I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forget what happens. Because I don't like, what draws me in is the fact that like this is just a cool world, and I'm just kind of on the ride. And there's this like really in-depth story that I know some people get really into. But the story of Bioshock has never really like been why I play these games. It always has gone like a little too convoluted and a little too like up its own ass, if you know what I mean. So do you kind of get what I'm saying, or am I just like talking nonsense here?
I think I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking like just the broad strokes of the story, I think Bioshock, I feel like Bioshock 1's biggest problem, and to an extent same thing with Bioshock 2, is it has really neat ideas, like sci-fi ideas and plot twists, but it lacks characters to latch on to really empathize with,
Yeah.
I feel like the closest character I really got invested in was Andrew Ryan, the primary antagonist of the game, because he's such a compelling force.
Yeah.
And admittedly, like, it's not that the game doesn't have characters, because I think when you listen to these audio logs, when you find them and like hear the citizens of Rapture and all the different players of like who contributed or witnessed the downfall of this city, their stories are compelling. These are well done audio logs, but everything outside of that is not as compelling. Like we talked about it, your main character is Jack. Jack doesn't have a character really. He's completely silent throughout most of the game. You have very limited ways of expressing him as a character, and it's mostly like, is he going to be a goody two shoes or a total dick
or a child murderer?
Yes, there's two extremes.
There's two. Yeah. He's either going to be the literal saint of the world, or he likes killing children.
Listen. If you want to look this up, like take a shot. If you look up like morality in video games on YouTube, take a shot for how many pretentious like YouTube essays have like the shot of the little sister with like rescue or harvest as like morality in video games, and it has those choices. It's like, I guarantee you over 50% of those like YouTube thumbnails is going to be that shot.
Hey, you do what you gotta do to get the views. I'll never doubt a clickbaity thumbnail, because I've definitely used those before. Why do you think the one like video essay I did, I had like Michael Myers like stabbing, I had big red text on it. I know the art. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of like, and morality in this game is really just more like, there are two options. There are two extremes. And I think really, we talked about it earlier, I think really what like makes you like not really attached to any characters is the fact you don't really see anyone in this game that you don't shoot at. Other than the sisters, who again, we just discussed. Because everyone is like either talking to you through audiobooks or psychopaths that you have to kill, and it's not like Jack is the biggest conversationalist. So you don't really get a good look at anyone. And all the audio recordings that you listen to, like, these are cool, but half these people that I'm listening to are just dead or insane right now. And I killed them 3 rooms back.
Yeah, like they don't play any active role in the story for the most part.
Yeah.
I think it's how do I put this? I think the thing is the best way you can kind of approach Bioshock of like why I would say it still has a good story is when you get down to it, it's not people like Dr. Tenenbaum or Atlas or Andrew Ryan even are the characters of Bioshock. Rapture is the main character of this game. The 100%. City itself.
And that's why.
And that's why.
Oh, go ahead, Will.
So like and that was definitely a thing with Bioshock, is that like I didn't feel a connection to any of the characters. Now, I'm gonna fess on myself a little bit. Did y'all read the Bioshock book Rapture? I'm ashamed to admit that I did. Just because video game books has kind of got a bad stigma on it.
I never read it, but when I watched a recap video, they talked about it.
Oh yeah, well it takes place from the point of Bill McDonough, and it's like that book is just like I think there's a lot of good world building in Bioshock, but there's not a lot of good character exposition or relationships. And I think that book kind of does a really good job at like actually building characters and like raising stakes on a more personal level.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I can definitely see that, because I've definitely heard this book mentioned about it as like a prequel novelization of Bioshock. So no, I get that absolutely.
Will I also?
And that's
go ahead.
Kind of the nature of immersive sims. Is another thing is like a lot of times because it's so gameplay focused, the game tries to focus on not taking the player out of the shoe. So there's not a lot of cutscenes in Bioshock. Just like there's not a lot of cutscenes in Dishonored or Deathloop, is because they want the player to stay in the world as long as possible. So that's why they set up these situations of like environmental storytelling and audio logs and stuff is because it's like, hey, we don't want to break up the player's immersion into the world. That we want them to stay in it. So I kind of get why they're like they don't develop much on the characters, but I'll be getting into a counter argument later about how they probably could have.
Okay. The last thing that I'll ask before we get into the actual gameplay is, Will, did you ever, and I should have written it down, but I don't have the name of it. Did you ever play or not play, read the book about like, it's called like City Under the Sea or something like that, and it's about like the reporter who's on the surface who like figures out that that there is a city underneath the sea. Like he's like this.
I did not read that one. I didn't know about that one.
Okay.
Wasn't available on Apple Books on my iPod Touch, I guess.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair.
How long ago I read that?
Yeah, because it's a, and this might sound familiar to some people. It's like there are audio recordings of this dude in two, actually, I believe. Of
Are
this
you talking about Mark Meltzer?
I think so. Yeah. There's like a book on a reporter that finds Rapture, and I also remember like there's audio recordings of him in the game, and I think he's in two.
Yeah, Mark Meltzer I think he was a reporter who had his daughter kidnapped, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, but I was curious on that because I was more like that's also a book. But yeah, talking about like actual gameplay of it, there's kind of two main like I say mechanics, but I mean, it is your weapons, like your actual guns, and the plasmids, which are these basically superpowers that people get to control. And the plasmids are really cool and interesting. There's not too many like, there's like quite a bit, but they don't get super tactical in this. A lot of it is like wind power, electroblast, enrage enemy, hypnotize the big daddy, fire, insect swarm, which was one of my favorites, and then kind of like,
oh yeah,
and then your standard stuff, telekinesis, winters, control robots, kind of standard stuff. So like these will all get expanded on in future titles, but I just remember like first time, like even like when I played the first time, like they're still really fun to mess around with and upgrade. And in later games, you can kind of like do different things with him. But, could you make traps with the plasmids in this, or is that a future title thing? Like
that's in 2, I believe.
That's in 2.
Yeah, that's
okay.
like, 2 really expands on the plasmid powers. But
Yeah.
no, I agree. I think like with the plasmids, one of the best things about them is how well they interact with the environment. Because it's very simple, but there's so many ways that they can interact with the environment and use them in like really weird combinations. That's fun. Like for example, like with the electroshock plasmid. You can hit an enemy, do a little bit of damage, stun them, and it follows up for like you can follow up with a quick headshot or something like that. But also it does way more damage when it's in water.
And it can hit more than one person. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the incinerate one, which is just like you can, like either light them on fire, or if there's an oil trap, light it at their feet. Like there's so many ways where you can conserve ammunition or like kill like big groups of enemies by just luring them to a pool of water or to an oil spill and then lighten it up at the right time.
Yeah.
And like that's just really just one application. There's like a bunch of others. Telekinesis was my personal favorite. I loved picking up like just random junk in the environment and just like fucking yeeting it at people and just like taking them out. My favorite splicer to fight against was like the bomber ones, just because I would
the nitro splicers.
Yeah, I would always catch their like bombs and throw it right back at them. I don't think it was in Bioshock 1, but I do like in Bioshock 2, you can upgrade telekinesis, so you can start picking up bodies and start throwing it at people too. It's like, all right, I just killed your friend, now I'm going to hit you with them.
One of my favorite plasmids, and for the sole reason of it's really funny to watch the ragdoll effect that happens, was the cyclone trap. I fucking loved using that move for some reason. I would love like shoot.
That was a pretty busted one.
Yeah.
From what I could remember.
I would like you shoot at a few enemies, run around a corner, like either put a trap ahead of time or like lay one down, and just have them like always coming at you, and watch them flip out. And again, we keep referencing 2. We'll get to it eventually. But like I remember in 2, like because you would have the protect the little sister missions, the cyclone trap saved my ass so many times, or just like multiple traps like that. But like especially that would have just like knocking enemies away, really helped.
And since we're talking about plasmids, I really got to talk about my personal favorite plasmid, which was the hypnotized Big Daddy plasmids.
Oh yeah.
Because
see, I never got any of those.
So I gotta say, like, it's very easy to like, oh, like, I don't want to use that. That sounds kind of like a little boring, right?
Yeah.
It's actually insanely useful because, in case you don't know, there's only so many Big Daddies that spawn in an area because there's only so many little sisters that you can save/harvest.
Yeah.
And you have to get through their Big Daddies. They start off as, they're basically these big mini bosses where they start off as like kind of just ignore you, but if you like try to go after the little sister or get too close or attack the Big Daddy, they get pissed and they'll beat the shit out of you. So why hypnotize is so good is it turns you over to your side. So I would literally just hypnotize a Big Daddy and let him just fight and kill every splicer in the map, because he can just tank it and just like absolutely obliterate them. I would also set it up so I would have that Big Daddy fight other Big Daddies on the map. So I basically got a 2-for-1 deal for like little sisters, because by the time the Big Daddy that I hypnotized won the fight, he's already severely weakened. So I just have to like put him down like Old
his misery.
Yeah, I just put him down like Old Yeller, and I get I hate to put it this way, you get free access to the little sisters. So
Jesus Christ, you could have phrased that.
Yeller.
Did. But no, yeah, having Big Daddies fight each other. Having Big Daddies fight each other was like is super fun. And yeah, also I mean that like if you see the boxer, like that's what you want to do. I want to play as like that guy, that dude. And,
Yeah, I was waiting the whole time. I was like, when am I gonna be Big Daddy?
Yeah. Well,
that was kind of happen.
Yeah. Bioshock 2 is when you gotta be a Big Daddy. But before we get into that, is there anything else with 1 that you guys want to talk about? I think kind of the only like big thing that we might want to mention is like the plot twist, the end of 1.
I want to ask, what is your guy? I've played through it multiple times, so I actually have a favorite build in Bioshock 1. What was your guys' favorite build? Or Drew, what was your build? I guess since you only played through it once. Like what was your kind of go-to loadout?
My go-to, I guess, like with weapon, and it's been so long since I played through it, so forgive me. But I'll mention this: the best weapon in the game is actually not the grenade launcher, not machine gun, not shotgun. It's the freaking research camera. That thing is amazing. I loved using that thing because you can take pictures of people, like then you start doing more damage to them and all that. I love that. But no, honestly, I would mainly always try to primarily have the shotgun out and ready in one hand. And then honestly, I would swap between either like Insect Storm or Cyclone Trap or even Incinerate. I think throughout all the games, I've always just kind of liked always having like whatever fire, whether it's fire, Incinerate, or like Ignite, I think is what it is called, Infinite. I always like having like fire around. But I tried like on my first playthrough to like really switch it up like a lot of times. But I think most of the time like that was probably like my most go-to plasma was fire. Also because like he like snaps at him.
Yeah, that is a pretty cool build.
So, yeah, I'd probably say
have a favorite build per se. I mean, so like I played the game definitely through a few times, but I was not good at video games because this was like late 2000s. I just wasn't with it then. But I definitely I think my favorite weapon was the machine gun.
Yeah, that's fine.
And like
Tommy
so this
guns,
is like
classic, yeah.
just to speak to like how like little I guess like gamer I was. I didn't fiddle with like different kinds of rounds. So I'd be hitting a Big Daddy with just like random standard ammo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember picking it back up when it I got the exact same thing on Steam. I got the legendary or the whatever, the 3 edition, and I was like, oh man, I really don't remember there being any other kind of ammo. I'd just be hitting Big Daddies with like anti-personnel rounds or something. Whatever I had in stock, I didn't like use it situationally.
Yeah, it is kind of cool that they give you so many options with like, especially in terms of like, not just for your plasmas, but with your guns too. One little neat detail I always liked is when you upgraded your guns, they always had like a new little like thing added onto it. Like it had like a little capacitor at the top, or like if you got like a bigger clip, like the revolver is the most like cursed shit. It's like this massive like tin can just like strapped to the side of it. It's like, yeah, that's your new magazine for the fucking revolver. It's like, Jesus Christ, it looks hideous.
Hey man, part of the people.
Those are cool.
Yeah.
My favorite build was I've done a number of playthroughs on Bioshock, but probably my favorite playthrough was the wrench build. I went basically all in on minimal use of my guns and just the wrench. So the early game was kind of hard because it was mostly like I had to like shock and whack enemies and then sort of run away to get more plasmids. But once I got more perks to get stronger with it, it got insane. And then I started, not only did I get like the winter power or whatever, there was also a perk you could get where there's a high chance that when you're hitting an enemy, it will freeze them. And when you freeze an enemy, they're more vulnerable to melee damage. So basically, I would just run around just like hitting enemies with a wrench, freezing them, and shattering them. It was so effective, it would even like kind of freeze lock Big Daddies into place, so I could just whack them to death with a wrench.
God,
that's interesting.
Was the most fun I had of that game.
I remember in terms of perks, I mainly just like, I think I pretty much built myself very like tanky on my first thing, just like a lot of reduced damage stuff. But honestly, I wish I could remember like, it's been a while since I played one, so I can't remember like my exact like perk loadout, unfortunately. But yeah, no. So the last thing with Bioshock 1 is, and spoilers for a game that came out in 2007. The big reveal with Ryan and with your character Jack is that you're some genetic modified son thing.
Son thing.
Yeah, it's weird.
I like that.
And yeah, you're Ryan's kid, kinda, and this big kind of like, it's a big plot twist that eventually you're what's the key phrase that he uses? I forget it.
Oh man, would you kind?
Oh, would you kind?
Would you
Yeah. And you've kind of, what's cool is like you've seen that phrase and heard that phrase like multiple times throughout the game. And it is kind of cool that's like, if players are paying attention or on like a second playthrough, you can kind of be like, oh, no, that is they actually did hint a lot towards this. And like you do see like, it's not just like out of left field type thing. So that is really cool. And yeah, this big kind of plot twist of just like, no, you're related to Ryan. Now that I read it out loud, it is very much like a Star Wars thing where it is like, Jack, I am your father.
Yeah.
But I remember like this was kind of like a big twist that a lot of people like talked about and was like, it was big at the time and was kind of like, I've seen a lot of times when people do like their Bioshock essays, is this moment of like Ryan playing, golf behind the thing and then says the secret phrase to you, which and this all culminates to again, you come back and you fight them, and then you have the little sisters suck the atom out of it, and then depending on if you were a good guy, you adopt them all, and if you were a bad guy, you eat them all or something. I don't know.
So if you're a bad guy, you basically like enslave them to like. It's a very, talk about a bad ending. It's really bad because it's like they like take over a nuclear submarine and suggest you get like nuclear missiles or something. Like it's such a bizarre ending if you've seen the bad ending.
It's weird. It's a weird one. But yeah, Seth, what's your kind of thoughts on like the ending of the first game?
I really like the twist, and I think the reason why the twist worked so well. I know what you said, Drew. I'm kind of ignoring it for a little bit, but I swear I'll get to my point. The reason I think the twist works so well is it's kind of like and I'm not the first person to say this. I'm not going to take credit for it. Like a bajillion other video essayists have said this exact same freaking thing.
Yeah.
It is like not just talking about Jack, but it's like the relationship of the game to the player. For a game that presents so many choices of like how you can approach a situation and like what powers and what weapons and stuff you can use, it kind of gets down to like you are always at the mercy of the game and what it tells you to. You might have think you had a choice, but in reality, you've been doing exactly what we've been telling you to do the whole time. We just give you a little bit of bending room, which is, it feels like the game was trying to say like your choices don't matter in the grand scheme of things, is kind of like the big overarching theme or message. Just for it to have like an ending, like very drastic, like good or bad endings, like, oh, it's all sunshine and flowers and all the little sisters love you and treat you like as a second father or whatever, or you're so evil that you take over a nuclear submarine. It's like, it kind of betrays what was set up before, where I felt like the whole point of the game up until that point was saying like, this is all an illusion of choice. Like you don't really have any real power. Just to come in like sort of at the last second at the end and be like, actually, no, your choices do matter, I guess. It's like, all right.
Will, what's your...
I'm just agreeing. That's pretty much...
Okay, I was like, you said yeah, like you're like, okay.
There's no tangent following that. Yeah, it just kind of pissed me off. I'm like, okay, well, this guy finally has choice, and I got either the best or the absolute worst. And like on my first playthrough, like I definitely harvested like every single little sister I found, because I don't know.
Y'all are monsters.
I was like, well, the way that they like set it up, and she was like, yeah, you're gonna not get that much Adam, which, you know, apparently like looking at how much Adam you actually get if you do save all the little sisters is actually more than harvesting, which kind of sucks. But
yeah,
I don't know. So I harvested them all for nothing. I could have had more and a better ending.
Yeah.
That was another thing, too. Like, you're also, if anything, you get even more awards. Like, that's how you get the hypnotized Big Daddy plasmid, is by rescuing a certain number of them. So, like, not only do you miss out on, like, I think less Adam, but you also miss out on more perks, too. So, you're really doing yourself a disservice. I guess the idea is, like, at that time, you immediately get more Adam in that moment. But it's kind of like, it's like an investment. Like if you rescue the little sister, it'll pay off a little bit later. But yeah, like I kind of like the idea of like tying it to like, you can take the better route, moral route, but it will also cost you in terms of your power more. Which I think is like a neat idea for a game, but that isn't really how Bioshock plays it out. No. Even though it kind of sets it up to initially be like that.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's just like the game is kind of isn't about choices. It's all about like, oh yeah, you can do whatever, move whatever. Oh no, you're being controlled. No, you're actually not. And it's this weird kind of like, huh. Yeah, I never looked at it like that. I'm just like, yeah, it is kind of like a weird double message of just like, you have free choice, but honestly you just have two choices.
And what if instead of a poorly designed like game mechanic by saving the little sisters to get even more Adam, they're actually just further like pigeonholing you into a specific set of choices? Yeah. Like, you know, actually you do have two options, but one of them's very clearly more advantageous.
Yes, there is no, other than just like if you're a psychopath, there really is no ultimate benefit to like killing all the little sisters.
Because it also I want to lose out on this because I'm a bad person.
Yeah. Because it doesn't, it also doesn't like change how Ryan dies, I'm pretty sure. Like even if like you are an awful human and just constantly keep killing and killing little sisters, you'll still like, it'll still be like, oh, if you just show up and kill him. Like in the end anyway. Like it's not like...
I know you said Ryan, and I know you probably don't mean it. The last boss is Fontaine, not Ryan.
Sorry, I meant Fontaine. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I get these people mixed up a lot.
And that's what happens when there's only audio logs.
And here's the thing.
And all these characters are just generic white dudes. No one, they all look the same.
Well, So
They were limited to polygons. I'm sorry.
I will give Fontaine. Now Fontaine definitely doesn't get even close to Ryan and the like how charismatic and how like
Yeah.
much of a presence he has with his speeches. But I will give credit for Fontaine. I do like the fact that he knows exactly how to play up himself as like a sympathetic character. Like he plays himself up as like some sort of like I'm gonna definitely mess up. Some sort of Irish Scottish immigrant. He's like, oh, I just want to go back to me home and find my wife and child and like go and live in the countryside. Like they play up like that hokey bullshit.
Yeah.
And whenever Fontaine turns into like a mustache twirling like gangster sounding dude, it's like yeah, like
Yeah,
it is kind of brilliant that he's like, you freaking idiot, you fucking dumbass, you fell for that shit.
Kind of rubs it in your face. Like, come on, man. I'm not even sentient.
And I'm just like, I couldn't do anything. Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm just sitting inside of like Persephone prison or whatever, just chilling here. And you did everything that I wanted to. And all I had to do was put on a stupid voice. And it's just like, that's funny. Like, I do appreciate that, like, Fontaine, like, even the whole thing where, like, the scene where the bathysphere explodes and his quote-unquote wife and child are inside, it's like you even bought that shit. And it was just like, you fucking idiot.
Well, yeah, well, you sold it really well, man.
Dude, I forgot about the whole bathysphere thing of just like, yeah, like he's like that blood color. Oh my god, my wife and child. And like, we gotta kill this guy. We gotta
Ira,
kill
can
him.
you hear me in there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What the-
God.
Oh man, I kind of do. It's great that the game is so successful and that everybody was like, pretty much everyone has been able to experience it. But because of that, I mean, I tried to get Randy to play through it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, would you kindly?" And I was like, "Motherfucker," just because it's so
like-
ubiquitous.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the problem. It's like kind of like Star Wars, where it's like almost no one will ever go into Empire without knowing the big twist.
Yeah.
Like it's just like everyone knows it. It's so well known now.
Yeah, like I think I saw like Empire. I watched it on Spike when I was like 14, and I was like, "Well, yeah, he's his dad."
Yeah.
But, I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Yeah, the big news back in the day was JFK got shot, and Darth Vader is Luke's father."
The big. Oh my god, that's the comparison. Yeah, but yeah, it is kind of like
Or like one of the other biggest cinematic twists, which is like Dom Toretto actually isn't a bad guy in Fate of the Furious.
Yeah.
What? You don't say. The main character didn't actually turn evil 8 movies in? Wild. Wild. But
I actually need to sit down and watch those movies.
you reference them all the time. I thought you have seen them.
Well, so I have like a really weird schedule. I've seen like a long time ago. I saw the first one, then I saw Tokyo Drift, which is not ever really referenced much. Then I watched Fast 5, and then the one before Fast 5. The one where he's like in the FBI or whatever.
Oh yeah, Fast 4.
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
It's not what it's called.
The one where they like the really iconic one where they like no, that's Fast 5. Sorry. Oh god, yeah. What was the big where they go to the Mexican border and they drive through the mining tunnel at the end or whatever? It's not a mining tunnel, it's a smuggling tunnel, right?
Man, there's
Yeah.
like a dozen of those movies.
I want to say. And this is not a
I'm surprised they start to run together after a while.
Yeah. Jeez. We'll talk about Fast and Furious later. We're kind of getting off track at this point.
Yeah.
But back on
Gotta
Bioshock.
derail the train.
Yeah. Back on Bioshock. I still think it's like a good game, and I think it's like, especially if you're into these style games, I think it's still good, worth playing and playing through, even though everyone knows the twist. And like Seth said, there is always the issue of just like, there's not. It thinks it has choice, but you don't really have choice.
And I think that's a point. And here's the thing: I feel like was the point of the story initially.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, if you buy the remaster collection like Drew has,
Mhm.
there's these really neat like little director reels you can pick up, where you can watch these.
Yeah.
And it basically no joke, when I first started playing through the remaster collection, I didn't realize these things were like 30 to 40 minutes long. So like there was one day where I was like, all right, I guess I'll just watch an episode of this. So I would literally boot up the game, turn on one of the documentaries, and grab like a bowl of cereal or something and just like watch it. It's like watching a documentary.
Basically.
And basically, yeah, they did talk about that the ending wasn't really something they wanted to do, but it was like basically time crunch and all that. They had to put something together. So the ending is the reason why the ending feels so abrupt and slapped together is because it was. They were like, well, we just got to get this thing out. So they just had to, and plus also it seemed like I think at the time 2K was kind of mandating like, hey, you got to make their choices matter. It's like, that's the whole point of the game is it doesn't matter. It's like, nah, you got to. It'll sell better if it does. It's like, okay, sure thing, boss. And now it's like the most widely criticized thing where even the devs don't like it.
Yeah.
When even the devs don't like it, I mean, that's just yeesh.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
It's kind of, and we'll get into it the next podcast, but like, it's kind of like, I feel like why Infinite goes the route it does is because it's definitely like doubling down on that particular theme.
Yeah. I agree with
Now,
you.
Seth, what was your favorite level of the game?
Oh man, I feel very basic for saying it, but I really like Fort Frolic when you have to do Sander Cohen's like bidding and all that.
Damn it, man.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was basic, but now I do, and it's also my opinion.
Everyone talks about like their favorite level is Fort Frolic, and I mean like shit, it is the best level because like you get to deal with Sander Cohen, who is just like a phenomenal villain. If you don't know, Sander Cohen is like this is a super eccentric character where the best way to describe him is he is a hack pretending to be an artist by throwing just random bullshit. That's his whole character, and he has completely lost his marbles.
Yeah, throws spaghetti at the wall, thinks he's Picasso.
Yeah.
And then starts doing it with humans at the walls.
So like Picasso.
What I love too is what's cool though is like one of those examples of player choice without explicitly being told to. You can just like take the stuff, the key or whatever that he gives you at the end, so you can leave and just leave, or you can kill him right there. Like that's another thing too. The game never tells you can kill Sander Cohen.
Really?
Well,
I thought there was no way. So I remember that being like he fought you to the death, but I killed him every time I did it.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to fight him at all. If you just do what he says, he'll be like, "Great, here's your reward. You can leave now," and then you can just leave.
Doesn't your like, it might be fun. Doesn't someone tell you like, hey, you should go kill him now? Like, there's not but like, it's not an objective. It's just like someone I think brings it up. They're like, hey, once you get the key, you should just like stab him, or beat
Probably
him.
Atlas.
Yeah,
It would probably be Atlas, but I feel like Atlas wouldn't have a reason to. Like, if anything, maybe it's because it's been a while since I've played it, but like, I feel like I'd remember that because like, I feel like if anything, Atlas would probably be like, all right, good, let's get out of here or something like that. Like, not tell him to like actually kill Sander Cohen. But yeah, like it's funny, especially since there is an achievement to where you've been doing his bidding, killing these people and taking pictures of their bodies. There's an achievement for killing Sander Cohen and taking a picture of his body.
I did. That was the first thing. Honestly, that's like the entire reason I think I went to kill him is to just be like, I bet this is gonna be ironic. I bet this is an achievement.
And it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good match.
So is it safe to say that your favorite, like, I don't know, telecom character is also Sander Cohen, or?
I feel like, yeah, outside of Andrew Ryan himself, it's been a while. So, like, I know there's all the... it's been a long time since I listened to the audio log, so I'm really only remember the big one. So it's like Dr. Tenenbaum. One thing I wasn't crazy about, probably my least favorite telecom character is Dr. Su Chong.
Su Chong.
Is not only is he a bastard, but also, unfortunately, as I probably clarified before on this, I am half Japanese, and although Dr. Su Chong I believe is Chinese, I'm still not particularly flattered about their depiction of an Asian character here.
Yeah.
Man, it was too. Yeah, that definitely has not aged well.
That also I agree with.
Dr. Su Chong is like, you've not aged well at all. It's like,
Now, my favorite audio log is when that little sister's like, Papa Su Chong, and he's like, go away. She's like, Papa Su Chong, and then he hits her, and this Big Daddy fucks him up.
I do like that one.
That is probably the most graphic sounding audio log because you hear like everything happen.
Mm.
It's so fucked up. I love
I
it.
remember that. And Suchong, Seth's favorite character, shows up back in a DLC, I'm pretty sure. And then
He does.
And you get to see it happen.
That is a really cool callback, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that moment. I love that. The second they introduced Suchong, I was just like, oh god, fucking damn it. And then I guess that's the one saving grace, is they introduce one of the most racist depiction of an Asian character and then murder him in the most graphic way possible twice in the series.
Yeah.
They're like, we know, we're sorry. Just kill it with fire, kill it with a drill.
When he does, without getting the spoilers, when he does appear in later Bioshock titles, I do think they tone it down a bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. But
It's
yeah,
still bad. It's still bad compared to most things, but
okay, maybe it's been a while, but I need to look it up. But I remember his telecom art, like it has like the portrait, whatever, pop up. I was like, oh, that's what you went with. It's like, it's like, damn, is it Dr. Seuss in here? Shit.
Oh, it is. It's bad. It's bad.
I will say, that being said, though, I say Fort Frolic, I do like, I know I didn't want to make this reference too early yet, but even though we talked about like, the Big Daddy's on the cover, it's actually an enemy. Technically, you do become a Big Daddy by the end of Bioshock 1. That's why you're in the testing lab, is you're gathering all the parts.
Yeah.
The last bit of it, even though it's kind of lame that they don't give you like the overlay of like, no wait, do they?
They do very briefly, but you don't finish the game with it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like you do, and then he fixes it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is cool that like the game, like, so the box cover of the game is like not the main character. It's just a Big Daddy because that's the enemy you're facing. Technically, no, it is the main character.
It's just at the the last maybe 30 minutes of the game.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. I think it makes sense in a weird way as a player progression because it's like, think of everything as like on a food chain. Like you got like your splicers and bigger splicers, Houdini splicers, and then you get Big Daddies at the top of the food chain. And your character comes in weak as shit, but then gets more plasmids, more perks, more atom, more stronger. Of course, by the end of it, they're the apex predator of Rapture. They're a Big Daddy. They're the most powerful thing on the station.
They are the biggest daddy.
I am the biggest daddy. I am the alpha daddy.
Alpha Daddy? God, that is...
That sounds like a line from like Pacific Rim or some shit.
Dude, that sounds like the line from a porno version of Pacific Rim. What are you talking about? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Pacific Rim did have porno writing. I mean, it wasn't good.
Hey, again, I'll say this again about Pacific Rim. I love that movie, and there's no romance in Pacific Rim. Everyone that says the romance is bad, it's just making the assumption that the two main characters get together, because they don't.
Yeah, they obviously didn't watch to the end of it. Yeah, that's true.
They just hug, and the next one, they're not together. She marries someone else. There is no romance. They're just friends, and people need to stop being so horny. That's my rant about Pacific Rim.
Pacific Rim is a Power Rangers movie without the Power Rangers.
All right, again, we keep doing this. Let's go to Bioshock 2. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with 1 before we switch games?
I love Steinman. I think he's baller.
Yeah?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, you're right. He is cool.
Yeah, I think that he's like obsessed with perfection.
Yeah.
Like when it's I don't know, you show up with Steinman and he's like, this one's too fat, this one's too tall, this one's too symmetrical. I'm like, bro, you're losing it. Too symmetrical, that's the goal.
It's too perfect.
Yeah, and then he faces a Jack and he's like, oh, ugly, ugly, ugly. And then he attacks you. I'm like, are you like fucking killing me because I'm here to kill you? Do you know that, or do you just not like that I'm ugly?
The Splicer voice lines are amazing in this game. I will say that much. Is like just the sound design and like the voice work all over this game is phenomenal. Save for Dr. Suchong, I think every voice actor and actress nailed their part in this game.
Yeah.
Especially since they have to deliver so much, and most of it's going to be audio logs. Like, you gotta keep
they're just like, hey, what's my character gonna look like? It's this little black and white portrait and nothing else.
It's like, they won't even see my corpse. Like, nope, most likely they won't. Because we don't want to model a unique corpse. We want everything to be just a splice.
Yeah.
Like,
We'd like to reuse our assets, please.
In a weird way, it kind of works because, especially with the time of when this game is set, which is like 1959, it's almost like listening to the audio logs is kind of like a radio play, because these people are just doing so much with like what they have, and everything has to be delivered to you through audio in terms of like the narrative. So they do a really good job with that.
It's fun. It's definitely a unique take, and I see why they did it, but yeah, it also made finding audio logs like really fun. Like always scary. Like it's a good feeling when you're like, oh yes, more story. Even though I don't remember half of it, but it's just like, oh cool audio because it's very well voice acted.
Yeah, and I do like how the game encourages exploration just because there is extra stuff to stumble upon. Like, if there really just kind of weren't any kind of incentive, like, I'm doing good on of course, depending on what kind of difficulty you're playing on. Did it have difficulty settings?
It did.
The original?
But it's very, like, simple. It's, like, easy, medium, hard. Like, that's really it.
Okay,
There's no,
I think it's just like
enemy mode.
Yeah, it's just like enemies take more bullets to kill.
Yeah, and I think resources are more rare, and that's, like, about it.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, one of my favorite moments from Bioshock that still stays embedded in my brain is how scared for a minute I got when you get the shotgun. Because
oh shit, oh my god.
Yeah, you like the corpse, you pick it up, and then all the lights go off, and you just hear this around you.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. It like took me a minute. I was like,
That's
right.
Probably my favorite part of the game.
Yeah,
honestly, like that's just that little moment.
Bioshock
was
like.
I hate to keep the section of Bioshock 1 alive, but with the first time playing through, so not being aware that I could not take damage in certain situations. So like when you get there in the bathysphere and the what's it called? The spider splicer is ripping that dude up and then it starts tearing his bathysphere. I was freaking out. And then like with that part of the plane came through in the tunnel and it burst open and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared. And I can't.
That is a cool moment.
Bioshock is like almost it teeters on the edge of like kind of being a horror game. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know if I would call it that, but it's very close.
I definitely would. First-person horror is what I'd say.
It takes a lot of inspiration. I didn't get to mention it, but like a lot of Bioshock was made by the similar team who did System Shock 2, which System Shock 2 is basically Bioshock in space. Is the best way I could put it.
They even kind of took the name.
Yeah. No, the Irrational Games, Ken Levine and all them have said over and over that Bioshock is a spiritual successor to System Shock, where System Shock is kind of like set in the far future, Bioshock is set in the past.
Yeah. It's just Bioshock, but in space instead of water.
But here's the thing, though: System Shock 2 is also like if you look at some of the stuff is like utterly terrifying too. With some of the stuff, it's kind of rated one of the scariest games out there, and it's not technically a horror game. It's just because of the enemy design and like sound design and the really creepy, uncomfortable situations it puts the player in.
Interesting. Oh, I have never played it, but I think that is about everything with Bioshock 1. Unless we forgot something and you guys are about to stop me right now.
It's everything that could have been said. There should never be any more Bioshock videos.
No, there should never be a Bioshock podcast or discussion or video essay after this podcast. We finished it.
Yeah, they'll just link it to the master, what's it called?
Yep, this is
Thread.
it.
This is it. We're done. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, one more thing.
God, never mind. We all lied. We were lying.
I'm playing.
There was no choice.
Right,
on to Bioshock 2. Bioshock 2. As I wrote in my notes, basically one, but everything's just kind of not as good.
Is that what you wrote in your notes?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
The story's like, and that was a harsh. That was coming from a dark place. Because like honestly, Bioshock 2 isn't as bad as I think I as probably I wrote out to be. Because there are some fun like improvements on it. I like the little like hacking mini game and your little like hack tool. I think that's fun. It dives just way more. You know, the little like do and then like the little dial that goes back and forth. That's fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, screw the hacking game in Bioshock One.
yeah,
Oh man, I think I'm gonna be the one disagreement here. I like the hacking game in Bioshock.
Are
1.
you? Yeah. I mean, okay, dude. Okay, so all good things in moderation. That was not in moderation.
I I prefer
Also,
twos.
I like twos. A two's definitely better because it's like just like, hey, it's a timing thing. Hit the needle in the middle, bam, you
Yeah,
got it right.
and it doesn't stop gameplay. You can be doing it while things are shooting at you, and you're like, oh shoot, I gotta time this well.
Man, I do like the pipe dream, like fucking mini game. Even though I do agree, you do it so much, it's so repetitive. But I kind of got like a weird, I don't know. I like
The
it despite its repetition. And here's the thing, though. Also, one more thing I forgot to mention. My favorite vending machine in Bioshock 1 is the Circuit of Value.
It's the
wait,
circus
this
of
is-
value.
Yours is the Circus of Value, dude. Mine's definitely got to be, dude. What was that? The ammo vending machine.
Oh
Oh,
yeah. With the,
Muchas gracias, senor. I was playing that like not too long ago. I was like, holy shit, that is racist.
Mother
You know what?
gracia, you need some balance.
Like, is that like social commentary from the devs about what 1959 was like, or is that what 2006 was like?
I mean, there's an argument for both.
it's kind of hard to tell.
A
Damn.
little too hard to tell.
Mother gracia. Oh, that's bad. That was bad. But no, yeah, the circus of value. I have that stuck in my head. I'll have that stuck bad till the day I die.
Come back when you get some money, buddy. Dun, 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 dun. Like, yeah,
what
I'm
was-
poor. I get it, bro.
Yeah, God, that was great.
Fun fact about the Circus of Value, why I have to bring it up is, and it's also confirmed in the documentaries when you watch it, the person voicing all the voice lines for it is the lead director, Ken Levine. He's the one that did all the voices for the Circus of Value.
Dude, he kills it. He's killing it.
Nice.
That's awesome. But yeah, Bioshock 2. It's kind of just like, it's more of one, you know, it's still Rapture. Which honestly, I'm not gonna lie. By game 2, at a certain point, and this might have just been me. You guys might disagree with me. Kind of got tired of the underwater area. Like, Rapture's cool and all. I like it, and I know we're in different
Like the
areas.
whole setting of the game.
Like, I think it did really well in 1, and I think in 2, it's just kind of the same. Like, it's like...
They do force you to walk through like the underwater sections way more than you did in 1.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, you know, like, it's a cool city and all, but I feel like it's
I've
weird.
been here, done this.
Yeah, you know, like, that's my thought process of just, like, I know that I'm in the physically different building, but it's just like, no, this is kind of just, like, the thing I did in the first game.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, Seth, what are your kind of thoughts? Do you see what I'm saying, or, like, are you still just like,
I
no?
I think I'm
kinda
getting the
get it.
vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like here's what I would describe it is everything in Bioshock 2 is a marginal improvement. I think the gunplay is a little better. I think the
Yes.
powers are
Yes,
a little
that
better.
is, that is
Oh,
undisputed.
I think they're way better.
Yes,
Yeah.
undisputed. Yes, powers and guns are way better.
Like the combat in general is more fun in my opinion and more challenging in Bioshock 2. But I think the best way I could describe Bioshock 2 is the problem is it is just chasing the shadow of Bioshock 1
Yeah.
without really setting up an identity for itself. And that's kind of the shame. I like Bioshock 2, but I also think it is a lesser game just because, especially when you get into the fact that it wasn't really helmed by the original devs because they were working on their actual Bioshock 2, Bioshock Infinite. That would take a much longer time.
Yeah.
So
Really? I did not know that at all.
This was made by, I think they were called 2K Marlin or something like that.
Yeah.
They were just it's kind of like the other video game comparison I could think of is Batman Arkham Origins, which was not made by like Rocksteady. It was made by Warner Brothers Montreal. Basically, it feels like they were told like, hey, you can make a sequel to Bioshock 1, but you can't rock the boat too much.
Yeah,
and
here's
they're
the
like,
IP.
okay.
Stay in the lanes.
Yeah, stay in your lane, and I think that's the sad part is because where they do decide to get a little bit more inventive, like with the powers and stuff like that, and even the story. I think it's admirable what they try to do with the story, like having Sophia Lamb be sort of the polar opposite of Andrew Ryan, where Andrew Ryan was always pushing about like individualism being the future for the city. She's like, no, individualism and selfishness and greed is what led to the downfall. Extreme collectivism is what we need.
Yeah.
And it's like, I like that opposition and ideology and all this. It's just, you know, they just don't really like do enough with it to really make it stand out. I think the best way you can enjoy Bioshock 2 is part of the collection, because I imagine if you bought this game on release, you probably would have been a little disappointed. You're like, yeah, it's more Bioshock. I don't know if I would have wanted to drop $60 on it. But as part of the Bioshock collection, it's kind of like, oh, cool, more Bioshock. It's almost like a DLC expansion to the first game.
And
marginal improvement.
That's really what it feels like, because the whole storyline for the game is that, like, okay, now you get to play as like the big daddy, and like you go and like protect the sisters, and you can do all that, and like it really does just kind of feel like, and I almost wonder if that's how it started, as a like Big Daddy DLC, and they're like, let's just make it into a full game and then let them keep storyboarding infinite. But I don't know.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Like at the very least, I feel like it's safe to say that this game was made as like, hey, we want another Bioshock game, but the main team is still working on their big project.
Yeah.
So we kind of have to give them more time. Just put out something in between.
Basically, Will, what are your thoughts on kind of what me and Sally are talking about?
I'm just kind of offended that y'all are assaulting my childhood.
Yeah.
We like it. We like
where I'm staying.
Game.
No.
I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying, like,
back everything that you just said about Bioshock 2.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought that it was a huge improvement upon the first game, just because this game actually like has consequences for your character, and you can do things as your character. So, like, of course, there are no audio lines, but you do develop relationships, and you have certain people that you can either opt to save or to kill. And I thought that was a huge improvement on Bioshock 1, just because there's really no way that you can change the end of the game in a meaningful way that wasn't a bullshit ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I will say the choices in the ultimate ending to Bioshock 2 is better. It's handled much better here than it was in 1, especially since like a lot of the story is you are a big daddy, and a lot of the characters you come across in that game of like whether you can choose to like kill or I guess forgive them are people that are like somehow indirectly responsible for the way you are now.
Yeah.
Like which is like a cool story beat. It does like lead more to like, oh, do I want to kill this person or not? It's like, do I want to be good or bad? It's like, no, this person was awful and they did something terrible to you and your little sister Eleanor Lamb. Like they did something terrible to you. Like, are you sure you really want to just let them go?
I remember like my first time playing it after I had like done the first one. I thought like that 2 was going to be the same thing. Then like, okay, there are only going to be 2 endings. It's either I let all these guys live or I have to kill all of them. So I let everyone live. And then I'm pretty sure you don't have to do that as long as all the sisters live. There are more than 2 endings of this game.
There's actually like a couple of variations. I think it all kind of boils down to like it's kind of like does Eleanor turn out to be a psychopath or not by the end of it is kind of the broad gist of it for sure. But I feel like there are variations to it. Like, for example, like, yeah, she may turn out to be like a sane person, but based on your actions, she might still like, you know, when she has Sophia Lamb right there in the bathysphere, she might just kill her right there or not.
Yeah. So it's interesting. But I will agree that in terms of just like gameplay, because ultimately it is a video game. In terms of gameplay, everything's an improvement. The weapons definitely feel like more unique and like stand out more. I already mentioned the hacking gun. I think that like the first whip you get, that drill, is really fun to use, especially when you upgrade it enough to have like that charge move that you get.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
That's
But you
fucking
got to
cool.
do the
Like,
research. You got to do the research for it, baby.
yeah, that's worth it. That was worth doing. Uh, and so that's
That,
really
I'll say that. I'll also add this much to that. On top of that, Drew, you remember what I said about the wrench build?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Same exact perks for the drill, and
Yeah.
the drill's even more ridiculous with it.
I think that's actually like kind of what I did, because I remember like I loved using the drill so much that I was like, dude, I'm freaking gonna max this thing out.
Yeah,
So-
man, that melee combat is tight.
Yeah. Using like
Being a big daddy, they do a great job of setting you up right at the start of like you do like yes, there's like power stuff like that, and by proxy they do make like the challenge more difficult. But man, do they make being a big daddy feel so much more
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, and I like that you can like move around with the little sisters and like harvest at them and actually like fulfill the function of a big daddy.
yeah. That was definitely like the design philosophy, which is like you're gonna be the box character this time. You're gonna play the big daddy.
Yeah, you are the person on the box, we swear.
Yeah. And I like that, like, also one of the things that, like, really adds a lot to me is even when you're just, like, walking around, especially in, like, certain areas, you feel heavy. Like, you're, like, every time you're,
Yeah, it's
stomp,
The camera
stomp,
shake
stomp,
and the sound
stomp.
effects and
Like, you're heavy, you're a big freaking person. And that, like, that's a really good feeling. I'll also say, even though, like, some moments it kind of got, like, tiresome, just like, oh my gosh, there's 3 of these little sisters in this area. Got like,
yeah, I gotta do 6 harvestings.
yeah, it got so, I will say it got repetitive very quickly. Early on, I did like the little sister mechanics. I did like that, like, oh yeah, we're gonna go, and the fact that like now all your plasmids are trapped, so you have to like, you can set up things early. You can throw out little drones to help fight with you, and like really just build this defense. I was like, that's kind of fun. But after doing it like 9 times in a row, it got really tiring. So it just kind of, I think it really just weared itself out really long.
Yeah, there's good ideas. Like the fulfilling the purpose of the little sisters is great, but you do it so much by the end of it, it's like, all right, here's time for another wave-based combat thing, which is
Yeah.
kind of like a little much. I will say this much though: one thing that did make the fights more exciting, at least, is by doing like all the like little sister protecting sequences. It brings out the new enemy type, which I think is really cool. The big,
Big sister.
yeah,
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
And
Yeah, that definitely freaked me out.
I just want to say, thank the freaking Lord they did not call that thing Big Mama. Let's just really appreciate that they called it a big sister instead of calling it like replacing the Big Daddy. It is a
I
big
think the
sister.
best thing about the big sister is like as soon as you like trigger it to have a big sister fight, like it doesn't immediately come at you.
Yeah.
It just kind of it gives you the sound effects, and then it screams a bunch, and you're just like, oh my god. So
Where?
I'm thinking, I'm like, I'm low on ammo. I'm not doing well. I'm
that's
on the verge of death.
That's a
Where do I
terrifying
go?
moment where you're just like, I don't have the correct resources to fight this, and you're just like, it's going to, but
Yeah. Hey, on its way. So incoming delivery.
yeah. That thing is those are super fun. I never got tired of fighting the big sisters, no matter how
Because
often.
it's
That
like
was
the
fun.
Big Daddy fights, but on crack.
Yeah.
Is the best way to put it.
Because they're
Plus,
fast.
I do like the idea, the story behind it is they are former little sisters who have now grown up.
Yeah.
And they are just so supremely
They're
for
just
lack of a better word, fucked up now.
oh, they are. fed
Yeah, and the
shit
plasma
on
that they
Adam.
have, like that, the what's it called? Telepathy. What am I thinking? Where they move stuff with
Telekinesis.
their mind. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Yeah, where they just like get all the debris in the area, swirl it over their heads, and smash it right at you. I was like, oh god.
I was like, oh, that's cool. Oh god, I don't know how to. I can't do that.
And I'm like, whoa, how did I get to the Vita chamber? I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Like you got your ass beat, dog. That's what happened.
Oh god, those are fun fights. Other than that, like, you know, again, we talked a lot about it, but like the plasmids here are also return, and there's some really fun ones. As I mentioned, most if not all of them can be now placed into traps. Incinerate is still here, which I still love. But you also have, insect swarm, and you have this like ghost move that like you can basically like see ahead of areas.
Oh yeah, that's really useful.
Yeah. So not everything's a hit. But yeah, what are your kind of like, other than what I've mentioned, what are your guys' kind of thoughts on like the gameplay changes from 1 to 2? You like either with plasmas or with the weapons? Because there is also a bunch of new weapons in here that I did not talk about.
Sorry, go on.
I realized that
Yeah.
Bioshock 2 was onto something really good when
Yeah.
you can upgrade Electroshock into like Palpatine lightning bolts, where you can just hold it down and just keep it going, and you can do the same thing with Incinerate.
Yeah.
I realized, oh yeah, they got it figured out. The combat just feels better. Something I don't think we've mentioned. This is the first game where you could dual wield guns and powers at the same time. Because if you remember in the first game, you had to switch between the two. It was
Yeah.
super fast, but you always had to switch it. But now you can have both up at the same time,
Yeah.
which feels amazing here.
True. Yeah. Will, what were you gonna say? Sorry, I didn't direct that question at anyone.
Oh no, yeah, it's just the dual wielding. Honestly, I think is the biggest, best thing that could have happened.
Yeah.
Just because in Bioshock 1, I thought it was. So I don't remember it being as snappy. I was like, I need a plasmid now because I'm on the verge of death, and it was like, yeah, well, sorry, man. I guess you could just eat a little bit of sugar. But yeah, I mean, so the combat as far as that goes, I like the expansion on the weapons. I know we've already talked about it. Love the drill. I really liked the spear gun because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't really remember having a sniper in
Not
Bioshock
really.
1.
No. Yeah, you have the hack tool. You have the research camera. You have a grenade / missile launcher, a shotgun, machine gun, and then the riot gun that shoots like bolts. And then
yeah.
The rivet gun, yeah.
yeah, rivet
You know
gun. I'm
what's funny?
sorry.
You know what's funny to me about the rivet gun is technically it's the stand-in replacement for the revolver.
Yeah,
In Bio.
it's
which
your
is funny to me.
pistol.
Yeah. But like it's so much more like intimidating than the revolver is.
And there's, God, that thing. Towards the end of the game, it's just like I could not use that episode or that ammo enough. Like there's just bolts everywhere.
Oh yeah, and those trap bolts, that was easily my favorite ammunition type.
Oh, the trap
Yeah,
bolts
I
were
did
great.
figure out how to use different ammunition types in the second.
But yeah,
Although I had a soft spot in my heart for the slug shot for the shotgun.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I love when
that.
if you hit that power of the people thing and you get like the 6-shot one where it just like adds them to the outside of the gun. That thing looks badass.
Dude, I remember. Oh, you're right. I just remembered like the shotgun. Yeah, the shotgun in 1 and 2 both are like that's my favorite weapon in the game. I love the shotgun. Feels great in this game.
You're a shotgun fella.
I
That's
am.
okay.
I've always been a shotgun fella. In most games, like that's my go-to weapon. I like it when the gun hurts people, and I'm not good at aiming, so I like being right next to them. So it always works out. But yeah, no, the shotgun feels great in this game. And also, like you're right, the spear gun is really good, and it's really useful because you can always like pick up the spear back after you impale someone.
Yeah, man.
And-
Like that ammunition's not gonna get wasted.
Yeah. And what's also really good is like when you get like the rocket spears, and those I would like.
Oh man.
I would specifically say for the big sisters. That was like my answer for them most of the time.
Those were pretty cool.
All right,
You just gotta stack ammo and pray you have enough.
basically, and half the time you don't. But yeah, that's
Okay,
kinda...
favorite plasmids, I think.
favorite plasmids.
I really liked the Winter Frost or whatever it was.
Yeah, Winter
Winter's
Blast.
Blast. Yeah.
I would probably honestly in this one, it's a toss up because I know like I said Incinerate for the last one, so I'm not gonna say it this time. But it's a toss up between either Insect Swarm, because it would attach to more than one person, and you basically just like covered the room with bees. And I like imagining like all those people are Nicolas Cage going, "Not the bees, not the bees."
The insect swarm is like so fucking powerful. It's like it's one of the most OP plasmids, I think.
I think
It's a fire and forget kind of deal, and it's amazing.
yeah, I would say insect swarm, but I will also shout out because Seth brought up the the Palpatine electric blast is also just how could you not? As a Star Wars fan, how could you not use that? So
Yeah,
but
playing Palpatine at the bottom of the ocean in 1959.
Yeah, exactly.
Galaxy not so far away.
Where he belongs, honestly. But what about
He's
you?
returned somehow. That's where he was the whole time.
That's where he was.
Yeah.
in
Just
Rapture.
at the bottom of the ocean.
Well, what about you? What are your favorite plasmids?
Oh, I said.
Oh wait, did
It
you?
was Winter's Blast.
Oh right, you said Winter's Blast. That was how this started. Yes, of course. And Seth, is yours? I know you mentioned that Bolt was like really fun to use. Would you say that was your favorite?
Yeah, I think I think I can't really pick one favorite just because like the way they improved like every plasmid since the first game here just makes them all viable one way or the other, you know. Like there's some new ones, like I think there's one that's just called like Rage or whatever. That I can't really remember all the new ones, but I just remember that with the amount of changes that they made and upgrades to the old ones, it felt like just whole new plasmids in of itself.
Yeah.
I like I said, I just will always remember the moment I got like the electric plasmid, like be able to hold down and keep firing continuously. I'm like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I'm gonna run.
Oh yeah, this is where it all comes together.
But yeah, my favorite plasmid is probably the one we'll talk about that's in the DLC though.
Yeah, that one's fun. So before we get to the DLC, because I feel like Seth wants to talk a lot about that one. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Bioshock 2? You know, we mentioned a little bit about the story and like kind of the general premise, but is there anything like specific that you guys wanted to harp on, like a favorite level or anything like that? Will, I'll start with you.
So I mean, I just really enjoyed the game because I remember wondering in Bioshock, like, is this the end of the actual city itself, Rapture?
Yeah.
Because it looks like things are not going well. But I really enjoyed seeing how, things things recovered under Sophia Lamb. After Atlas and then, Fontaine. After Fontaine and after Ryan died, that there was someone there actually to take over. And so, I mean, the game takes place, I want to say, in 1969. Seth, back me up or shoot me down.
It is about like 10 years after the events of Bioshock 1.
I had the wiki up for this. You are 1 year off. It's 1968, roughly 8 years.
I'm ashamed.
Damn.
You were so close.
Dang, just 1 year off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really liked that to see that the world stayed it stayed shitty 100%, but it stayed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just...
And you see the decay. Like, that's another cool thing is, like, you might even see some familiar locations in Bioshock 1 and 2, but it's gotten worse. Like, you see more of the ocean starting to come through. You see more of the algae. Like, it's...
Yeah, man, and even just, like, in the cover art where it's, like, Bioshock, and then the game starts, and then it's like it shows the Bioshock logo, and then it starts growing barnacles on it. I was like, because the sea is just taking this place back.
Yeah.
And I thought that the environmental design was really good at portraying that.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I know, like I started this with saying like, oh, I wanted something like different in that. I will still admit that like, I think Infinite was a like really nice breath of fresh air. No pun intended. But this is still great level of design. It's still great atmosphere. I think literally the only thing holding Bioshock 2 back is that it's called 2, and that my mind will always compare it to 1.
Yeah, if they would have called this if they would have treated this more as like an expansion and called it like Bioshock like Subject Delta or something like that, it probably would have been way more better received.
Bioshock Daddy Edition.
Daddy,
and now that you guys mentioned that, I kind of am putting together in my head what that criticism is about, because I know you said it earlier, but
Yeah.
I didn't really vibe with it. But it really does not have any connection to the events of the previous title.
Nah.
It does a little bit.
Well, the
just
world
because,
and the
like,
world alone,
Yeah.
right?
well, the world, and also like there's some elements, like for example, like part of Sophia's plan was to get Eleanor to like for some reason absorb all the like intellectual memories through Adam of everybody, of all the intellectuals who died in Rapture, because she
Yeah.
wanted to make her to like a super being, and part of that required her to use the same brainwashing on her that was done to Jack. So there's like little elements of that. And like, to be fair, Bioshock 2 is about just dealing directly with the fallout and the power vacuum left behind by Fontaine and like Andrew Ryan's like war. I think one of the themes of Bioshock 2 is, even with both Andrew Ryan and Fontaine dead, those guys are still fucking it up for everybody else.
They're still causing problems.
Their legacy persists after death.
It's like how
You still remain an asshole,
Yeah.
even in death.
it's like how 90% of like Spider-Man's villains are just because Tony Stark catch fucking shit up. Like even when this guy is dead, he still causes
You're
problems.
causing a lot of problems, man.
It's like even your death will not fix this. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Bioshock 2 is a bad game by any sense, but it definitely feels more like an expansion than like its own game. But speaking of expansions and not their own game, let's talk about the DLC Minerva's Den. And I'm not even going to start this. I'm just going to let Seth go off because he's been wanting to talk about this for a while. So, Seth, what are your thoughts on Minerva's Den?
To put it in the nicest way, first off, there is one last thing I do want to talk about Bioshock 2 that always shocked me. Sinclair does not betray you.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Yes. Let's actually.
That was the biggest plot twist of the game.
That he's genuinely
the smooth talking Southerner sounding conman never betrays you, even when faced with death. Are you kidding me? That's insane.
That actually did throw it for. Yeah. You know what? I'll give it that because you're right. And I like.
Sinclair's the best character in Bioshock 2's main story, just because you are so ready for him to betray you at any second.
And he just genuinely helps you out. The wildest thing. I forgot about that. They're like, oh, right. Sinclair's just like nice to you. Like, he's
Like,
just your
nice,
best.
wholesome guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those times where it's like, hey, buddy, you need to get to like the fucking. Well, sorry, it's more like Southern gentleman draw, and I can't do that. But like,
Do your thing. I like that.
I want to know
Like,
more
every
about your
time-
character.
every time he was just. I feel like I'm about to turn into that like one Looney Tunes like Bighorn or whatever. It's like I say. It's like, hey buddy, you need to get to
Yosemite Sam, is that who you mean to say?
No, is it Sam? Is Sam the big chicken?
Oh, Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Foghorn.
Foghorn.
Yeah, that's. If I try to do Southern gentleman, I'll just end up sounding like him.
I mean-
Foghorn. I say.
I never betray you, Big Daddy.
You gotta go get your little sister, man.
You gotta go get your little sister, man. You're a Delta.
No.
I don't know what that means. Anyway, yeah, Sinclair.
Good.
Oh god.
Hey, did either of you play multiplayer? Or okay, more specifically, Seth, did you play multiplayer?
No, because funnily enough, I never played Bioshock 2 on release. I only played it in the remastered collection, which does have the multiplayer with it.
Hey, wait, Bioshock had multiplayer?
So
Yeah, this was in the original
yeah.
copy.
Yep.
What?
Man, I tell you that all right, well, I can't talk about it with you guys, but it was I mean, I can, but I can't, you know.
Can't
You
vibe
weren't
with
there
it
for the
now because we didn't
experience.
play
They
it.
stopped patching it after a while, and like you had an elephant gun and electroshock beat everything, and there were these like ridiculously skilled players that just made the game not fun. But yeah, Bioshock 2 multiplayer was a freaking bop.
Dude, I just didn't know. I'm gonna have to look this up. I just didn't realize that game had multiplayer.
So
I think
apparently,
some
and I was
people play on
listening to
the
this.
PC version still.
and I have accessed it on PC. No one. So like, I'm gonna have to find some subreddit or something to find some actual people to consistently play with.
Yeah.
Because it's just not active anymore.
Damn.
But I was listening. Like Randy had this Mass Effect video on the other day, and it was like talking about how games made in this area pretty much all launched with multiplayer, just because they were all trying to get in on it before they figured out that this is not at all what this audience wants. But that's what Will wanted.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because
Bioshock Infinite didn't have it.
Bioshock Infinite would have been the game to do it too. Like that would have worked better because you had the grapple mechanic. It had a lot more movement options. Yeah, that would have worked way better with multiplayer than this. I feel. I mean, maybe, but yeah, that's everything with Bioshock 2. Unless either Will or
Well,
Seth.
then there's Minerva's Den.
Yeah, I know. Okay, before Minerva's
got
Den.
to it.
Yeah.
As I was trying to transitions to. All right, Seth, talk about Minerva's Den. I did the transition earlier. I'm not doing it again.
No, you're good. I kind of ruined that. I just needed to shout out my bro Sinclair.
Bro, I had such a good sway into that. I was like, oh, I felt that flow too. I was great at that. That was prime time.
Was solid.
That was
Let's
prime
see if we
time
can't get in
hosting,
there
and he's
messing
just
up.
like, I'm not gonna answer your question, and I'm like, well, fuck you.
Name a more dynamic duo. Drew setting up a good transition and me just fucking destroying it. Just yeah, I'm not going to talk about that yet, actually.
That has been a consistent theme of this. And it's always you. It's always you. It's never Randy or Robbie. It's always you.
It's funny because we do talk about this beforehand, not the specific transitions, but the points we want to touch on with the podcast. So it's not
yeah. I spent earlier. I said okay, Seth, but when we get to Minerva's Den, I'm just gonna throw it to you and you just go that. That's the one thing I set up.
And it's all right, cool, I got you. And then I'm yeah, nah, actually.
Oh god, dang it. Oh my god, talk about your stupid DLC. I don't even like the DLC anymore because of this.
I'm sorry. Anyways, Minerva's Den is a DLC released for Bioshock 2, single player, and it follows the story of Subject Sigma, who has to go and retrieve the Thinker, the first AI that was built in Rapture by a scientist named Charles Milton Porter. It is one of my favorite Bioshock stories, if not the favorite one. Just because, in my opinion, Minerva's Den addresses one of my issues about characters in the story of Bioshock by expanding on them. It actually makes them a crucial part of the story. This whole time, you're listening to Charles Milton Porter telling you how to get to the Thinker, and you're also picking up audio logs about the things he had to go through, and it touches on themes that I feel the Bioshock was kind of hesitant to do, which was one, all right, you live in a world where you have extensive genetic modification now. So I remember one of the audio logs asking Milton Porter, who is black, they say, oh, why don't you just use Adam to turn yourself white so you don't have to face discrimination anymore? I'm like, Jesus fuck. Oh my god. It's the most disturbing place it could push you, and you can see how much it irritates him whenever they ask him that. Porter, I mean.
Yeah.
I love the story of this. It touches on really not that the main games of Bioshock 1 and 2 didn't, but I think Bioshock Minerva's Den really nails down some of the more some of the social aspects and consequences of what would something like being able to splice the human genes actually do. What would people want, especially since it's set during the 1950s?
Yeah.
Let's be real. What kind of these people are going to be like?
There's especially the only people that are in Rapture are the 1%.
Yeah,
they are the wealthiest of the wealthy. Are they always afford this? Of course, they are the worst people.
One of my favorite audio logs, I forgot to mention this, and I think Will contest this, from Bioshock 1, is where they start to run into an issue. It's all right, we set up Rapture as this paradise, this haven for the 1%ers, the artists, the the scientists and all this stuff. It's like, but who's going to unclog our toilets? Who's
Yeah,
going to take
yes.
out our garbage?
I remember
And
that
it's like,
log.
so
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, like, it turns out that, like, what's really vital, like, oh, yeah, the artists and stuff like that, were the people who can actually cook you food.
It's like that one meme on Shaw's like, I need everyone to stop being influencers. We need electricians, please.
It's so I like that, but anyways, like I love Porter because I think they did such a good job of making him like a really empathetic character, especially with his backstory about like part of the reason he was creating the Thinker is it was his way of trying to bring back his wife who had died.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh fuck, that like you really feel that like the voice actor for him, I can't remember his name, but he's done like a lot of like mainly like television and films, but some game stuff. He does such a good job with Porter. And funnily enough, it's kind of revealed that like towards the end of Minerva's Den, that Subject Sigma, the character you've been playing as, is Porter. The Porter you've been hearing over the like telecom thing is the Thinker emulating Porter's voice and mannerisms to help lead you on.
Yeah.
One thing is whenever you turn into a big daddy, it's such a traumatic experience that a lot of times most of the subjects forget about who they were. They're kind of reduced to like an animal almost. God, it's so brutal. Like as fun as like the combat is, which is great because it has like all the stuff with like the new like Lancer big daddy types you fight against. The gravity well black hole plasmid that you can throw out that's really cool because it just literally sucks everything in and is ridiculously OP, or the on laser. All these things are cool that make it a fun snack-sized version of the Bioshock experience, feeling that power, feeling all these different weapons and stuff like that. But what really gets me about this game is its ending. When you're done with the fight and you're walking through the bathysphere, you know now who your character Subject Sigma is, and you're listening to all the audio logs of Porter and his wife. And the last one where he finally gets the AI, the Thinker, to sound like his wife, and he just breaks down, realizing that he can never bring her back. I was like, I did cry. I remember like I was in like my sophomore year of college when I played this, and I was like I was in my dorm room just like crying. I was like, oh my god, I was not ready for this. It's such a good, like I said, Bioshock is great with the hefty ideas, but I think what Minerva's Den does so well is it makes it personal. It takes all these big concepts and dilutes it down to a intimate character story, and I love that. I love that DLC. That's why it still remains as like my favorite Bioshock story out of all of them.
God. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, you're right. I have no like other words to do that. It's like, yeah, it's because like I think the main issue with like I said very early in the podcast, the main issue with like the Bioshock stories is they kind of get up their own ass, and what I mean by that is they all, especially in Infinite, it's all about big corporations. It's big things. At one point, they start doing time travel and multiverse and all this stuff. And everything like kind of gets big and convoluted and just like almost a jungled mess. Minerva's Den is a solid personal character story about this dude and this invention that he's trying to make. And it really just like, I don't know, it hits different. I don't know how else to describe it other than like what Seth just said. So that's why I'm going to throw it to Will. Now it's your turn to think of something. What are your thoughts on Minerva's Den?
Yeah, Seth's right.
Okay, cool. And we're... It's like, I was
All right,
like...
cool, I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Well and truly.
I mean, yeah. No, Minerva's Den's just like really good.
Yeah, Minerva's Den slaps. That's all. Pretty much it.
Which is why I'm just going to move to like the combat and like... Because other than just like, yeah, great story, it does improve on that as well. The first weapon it's giving you is this freaking laser cannon. Again, super fun, a great improvement to like, because all the big guy weapons are like these big, heavy, like machinery arsenals, and it just kind of fits right in. And then it also like, the new plasma gets you that gravity move is super fun to use. and super amazing. But like, yeah, it's just an improvement on really both 1 and 2. And I think Seth said this earlier, just like, I think you said it's the one good thing that came out of 2. It's like, I think that's a bit extreme, but it's definitely the best thing to come out of Bioshock 2.
That is why, like, and it's like, it's why I have a soft spot for 2, is it's like, the main story is admirable, but misguided. It's like you're playing it too safe. Minerva's Den kind of proved that this studio, or rather this team that was putting together Minerva's Den, it's like, no, you could do this. You could have always done this. Like, you could, like, being able to give the Bioshock experience while making your own, like, mark on it.
I agree, yeah.
So, just to clarify, this was also done by 2K?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
These are the same
So they had it all the time. They had it all along.
Yeah. They had it in them. They went from, like, because I think a lot of people consider 2 like the worst out of the 3, but I feel like most people consider Minerva's Den the best DLC. So like, it's kind of interesting that it's harsh to say this, but they made the worst like game but the best DLC. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird little plug.
It's so weird. Just to make it even further, a lot of the studio who was part of 2K here that would break off made their own studio, and then they would go on to make a really good like narrative game called Gone Home, which you might have heard. And I've also played Gone Home, and that's a really excellent like video game story. Yeah. So like the best thing about it is that it proved they got the chops and they went on to make their own thing.
Yeah.
They got the clout to go out on their own.
Yeah. And speaking of going out on our own, before we go out on this podcast, is there anything else you guys want to talk about, either with Minerva's Den or just Bioshock in general? Seth, I'll start with you. It's kind of some closing thoughts.
Honestly, I love this series. I think there's a reason why it's fun, because there's only 3 of these games. Spoiler alert, they're all pretty tight and they all still are fun to enjoy. They have some of the best atmosphere out there, really good like environmental style storytelling and gameplay. Go play these games. The Bioshock Remaster Collection especially makes it so easy to access and play.
And like honestly, half the time that collection goes on sale a lot.
Oh yeah, like, all the time.
For like dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really helps is that not only is it like easily accessible, but also the art design, because they don't really, one thing that I don't think we mentioned, a lot of the art design for Bioshock 1 and 2 is it's not really like realistic, like the proportions of characters and stuff like that. It's more like comic booky, graphic novel-ish, where you have like very big exaggerated faces and hands. Yeah. So it does lend itself like a sort of timeless quality where you're not looking like, oh, the grass is not photorealistic enough. It's like, no, there's like an art design here that really still holds up to this day.
Yeah,
stylized.
The style and atmosphere of these games, I don't think will ever go out of style, and will always kind of be the thing that brings people back. Is that it's like
the gunplay though in the original Bioshock, I think that there's some things there.
Yeah, which I guess kind of leads me to like my last question. For the first 2 games, I think Infinite's a bit too, even though like came out a while ago, it's still too new to like do this. Would you guys want either a remake or like remaster of the first Bioshock games? Or well, I'll ask you.
We kind of gotten a remaster.
So I guess I guess like more remake, kind of like how like the Dead Space series has done it.
Yeah, like Dead Space got its remake. Resident Evil been doing it too.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hard thing because I really feel like the only thing that really needs to be tightened up is the what is it called?
The gunplay?
The gunplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. Because I think like the powers still hold up, the enemies still hold up.
Yeah.
Like, and like I said, I feel like part of the benefits of this game is that like the art design still holds up very well. So it's like, do I really want them to go in and put this in Unreal Engine and like make it look super photorealistic. I don't know. I kind of like the way Bioshock looks now.
Yeah.
It's part of its art design. It'd be kind of, because Drew, what you're asking me kind of feels like asking, do I want a remake of the first Dishonored? It's like, no, not really.
Yeah.
Because like that game has a very unique art style.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think that a modern remake would be a win-win. I think that the legacy of Bioshock is so firmly cemented that a botched remake would not tarnish it, if that makes sense. So if it's a good remake, that's a win. If it's a bad remake, we can on it as a massive community.
That's true.
And I don't think that if like and it's not. Well, I guess I don't know. So if it were not a good remake, some of the younger generations of gamers that have evolved, that have happened in the last 17 years, they might not be so hot on it, but it's not like they're going to go back and play, 2006 Bioshock anyway.
Yeah.
So like I've heard about, the legacy of Bioshock and, System Shock, but I have never had any kind of desire to go and play System Shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually working on I'm actually working on about to start like System Shock 2 at some point. So I am going back to revisit it. But on the right side, I mean, Drew, you mentioned it. One of the, not System Shock 2 yet, but I believe they are planning to do that. They are working on a remake of System Shock 1. And I think by proxy, eventually System Shock 2.
Yeah.
That is Night Dive Studios. And those are the games that inspired the Bioshock series. So I mean, it's like, and I'm personally excited for those remakes as well. But I definitely think I'm willing to accept this caveat where everything I said about like, do I want to see a remake of Bioshock 1? I feel like there are the exact same fans out there who would say the same for the System Shock games, even though I've seen them and I know these are pretty old.
Yeah.
They're old as shit.
My one
See,
thing.
like, when did System Shock 2 come out? I'm curious.
It was like 1990.
Oh my Christ!
When he said 1990, I was like, oh no.
God.
So before, these games are older than me. Because I was born in 99.
Yeah, I was born in 96, and I was like, man, I was 2, but I couldn't fiddle with the sticks back then. I tell you what. Was it PC only? Was it like one of those kind of exclusive type?
It was.
Yeah.
I'd be cool to see a remake and then like bring it, like kind of redo it to like bring it to modern console. My one thing, I'll say this with Bioshock 1. I would, if you were to do like either like a remake for it, I'd want it to be like you change up like the gameplay to make it a bit more like refined and snappy. But I would want there to be more than 2 endings. I say keep the story as similar as possible, but add things that allow you to like make it more than just like either you're the worst human on the world or you're a saint. I think that,
like I guess, and what I'm about to say is for Seth is because like I don't have my pulse on my finger on the pulse of the Bioshock community, but you said that the community was not pleased with those 2 endings, those 2 variations.
Yeah. No, I think no one really liked the original endings of Bioshock 1, just because it felt too much like the way they put it. It's like because how much the rest of Bioshock feels unique in its perspective on like choices and do they matter and all that. It felt like, yep, here's a cookie cutter ending that could
they just
really
kind of slammed you into it.
Any other video game.
Well, and like so with so I recently have played the legendary edition of the Mass Effect trilogy, and I'm not gonna spoil that because there may be a person here who hasn't finished Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
I need to. Like, I need to get through 3.
Okay, yeah, but something that you may know, and that is definitely not a spoiler, is that when Mass Effect 3 originally launched, like the fans were livid with the endings.
Yeah.
I remember like I was just reading an article about it from like 2016 or from 2015. I think it launched in 12, so it was just anyway, old article. And the Legendary Edition has changed that. So I think that there could be a good, faithful Bioshock remake with an ending that would be more canon than the old ones.
Yeah, I think that, and also like it's not like it would be out of this world for it because they've already talked about in Infinite about like there's multiverses in this world. There's like different timelines. Like it's already confusing enough. So I feel like I feel like when they did Infinite, that kind of opened the door for them to be like, yeah, we can just do whatever. Because it's just be like, oh, it's a different timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna DCEU it. Instead of Jack, it's John.
Yes, yes. Instead of Ryan, it's Randy. But it's our Randy, so he's just like,
Yeah, man.
you get
God.
you get
I'm
to
not gonna make a joke where he can hear it.
yeah. Oh god. Okay, but I think that's enough about the Bioshock thing because we're almost at 2 hours. So let's wrap this up the same way we wrap up all of our podcasts with our fresh picks of the week. This is where we talk about what we've been playing, watching, or listening to in the in between weeks. So Seth, what is your fresh pick?
All right, so this is going to be a fun one. My
Yes.
fresh pick is a game I've been playing called, you might have heard of this, Death Road to Canada. It's a bit of an older game, came out in 2016, but they've been putting out updates since then. You guys ever played the Oregon Trail?
Yes.
I have not. But
All right, so the Oregon Trail is, I'm not going to explain the Oregon Trail. I'm sorry, I don't have time.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
Basically, the
Google.
Oregon Trail, this is like Oregon Trail, but with zombies. It is about making your way to Canada and surviving with your group of survivors. It is a fun, goofy, retro-style game.
Huh.
It has a lot of fun little scenarios. The best part, though, is the custom characters, because you can give them all these backgrounds and traits that affect them in the gameplay and like different role checks, and you can name them. So, of course, I have made myself, I have made my brother, and I have made Drew and Randy in the game, and it is so much fun.
So how far have I made it? And how far before I die of dysentery?
So Drew, actually, I've actually gotten you and Randy to Canada. You
Hell
guys
yeah.
have survived all the way through, which is fun. It's funny because it's like, oh, what kind of run I'm gonna do? Yeah, I think I'll do a Drew and Randy run. So based on Drew's background, I made him a athlete. So he's like good.
Yeah.
He has good fitness. Is able to like fight with like really well with sporting equipment. He
I'm
starts
a
off with,
runner.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I use that. It's like, all right, your background is athlete. Cool. I'll use that. For Randy, I chose his background as a. This is funny. His perk is car nut, which means he's really good with cars.
Makes sense. That is Randy in real life. Yeah. He's an engineer.
And he also starts off with a better car, which matters because you need good gas mileage and stuff like that. And first, I don't know if after listening to Will talk about it for a minute, I also picked the charming trait for him, but I don't know if I should have given that to Randy. Should I have given the charming trait to Randy, where he's like really good at talking to people?
You know, like one of my things that you said as soon as you said you can customize characters, I was be like, these guys might be pissed if they take a look at their stats. Be like, Randy's char is so low.
Randy most of the time is an awful fighter, but he's great with cars.
I mean, to be fair, despite the fact that like I am shorter and like not as muscular as Randy, I still fully believe I could take him in a fight. So that might actually be accurate.
Drew, I focused on him just being the meathead of the group. Like he is just like.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah. Also, my favorite thing is like there's these like little random dialogue exchanges because there's so much good character and like goofy moments in it. While driving along, there'll be these random text message pop-ups of like what they're saying in the car. My favorite moment is Randy is like, "How about we do a sing-along?" And then Drew responds with, "How about we do a shut up along?" And then you see Randy's morale goes down and Drew's goes up after saying that.
See, what's funny is like usually in that conversation, it's the other way around. Normally, I'm like the hell yeah, let's do it. And Randy's like, shut up. It's normally the other way, which kind of makes it great. Oh my god, that's funny.
So yeah, Death Road to Canada. It's super fun.
God, that's so fun.
I want to turn my mic off and hit my inhaler.
Seth, honestly, I want I don't even want to play this game. I want to watch your playthrough of this game of like you imitating like us, like our friend. I would love a fresh. Like if we ever do a Let's Play, I would love that.
Drew, this is the last one I say. I did make a play. I did make a. So we have me and Drew. We have a friend, Jake and Jacob.
Oh,
so
God.
It's hard to keep up with all the Jakes.
Yeah.
So I made Jake, and then I also made Dr. Jacob.
Makes sense.
Dr. Jacob.
He is.
There was a scenario.
Yeah.
There's a scenario where we come across a bunch of books, and then it's like I'm looking at all these different things, and then there's a special option for Jacob. It's like, book rage. What does that mean? I click on it. Jacob rips the books in half, and he says like, "I don't need books. Books are for nerds." It's just like, oh my god.
That seems accurate, though. That feels like what Jacob would do, even though, like, yes, he is a medical doctor.
I did send him that, and he's like, "Oh no, I'll never become a doctor at this rate."
He's in the army, he's trying to be a doctor, but knowing Jacob's personality, I feel like that's exactly what he would do. It's like,
Books are for nerds.
like rip him in half. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, Seth, I need to watch your playthrough of this. That's fantastic. Okay.
Bro, you need to start streaming.
I'll help you set up the stream, man. We'll put on the fresh. We'll start the fresh Let's Play channel. Oh, it'll be great. Okay. Okay, moving on. I'm sorry, Will. We did that for a while. What is your fresh pick of the week?
So my first pick of the week is Hollow Knight. I have put over 100 hours into this game, I think, in the last 2 months. It's a 2D Metroidvania where you're a little knight, and it's in a little bug world. It's pretty cool. The best part is that it's an awesome game, and it maxes out at $15. And they pushed. This game came out like I don't know how long ago, but they kept pushing free updates for it, and there are some major DLC packs. And so for the low price of $15, you can really mess up your sleep schedule with this game because you just want to keep playing it.
I'm amazed it's only
That's my piece.
I hear people talk about Under Night all the time. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Seth.
Oh no, that's all I had to say. Just like Silk Song is also coming out this year, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, apparently that's like a huge deal with the communities because like I don't know. I guess they've pushed the release date so long, and the community's like, I don't think this game's even in development.
I don't think this game's real. I think this is a lie.
Real at all?
Yeah, they're trolling us.
That'd be funny if it was. But yeah, I haven't played it, but it's always been something like I would like that game. Like I watch it, I'm like, yeah, this would be something I would really enjoy, and it's just like. I need to wait for a moment when I don't have a huge backlog of other things I need to play. Mass Effect, I know. I need to do that. But eventually, when I'm like 50 or something.
No, man, you need to push that to the top of your queue, bro.
Other than dude, Seth's been trying to get me to play Mass Effect for a while, and I've already done 1 and 2, and he really wants to do a podcast.
Just finish off the third. Good God.
Yeah.
I remember Randy. He was like, "We got to play this game," and then we put like 140 hours into it, and it was like, "All right, we're done."
Yeah, I took my time with it. I was say when I play the Mass Effect game, I take my time with it. But Mass Effect is not my fresh pick of the week. I'm actually going to pick a movie. And Seth, I think you would really enjoy this movie. It is Evil Dead Rises. It is the latest installment in the Evil Dead franchise. Kind of its own thing. It doesn't have Asher Williams in it, which I love him, but it's trying to do its own thing. It's a bit more horror-y. But the way I've described it to people is, if you remember the 2013 one, that thing was basically like torture porn for how violent it got. Like that movie was scarring to how bad it got. It's in between that and the original for how like gruesome it is. So it's still gruesome, it's still bloody, and it's scary at moments, but it never gets that bad, and it's still ultimately like a fun movie. And there are still like a couple like tongue-in-cheek, like wink at the camera moments like that hark back to the original. So it's still really fun. It never goes like full comedy like the old ones do. But I definitely recommend it if you're either a horror fan, if you're an Evil Dead fan, or if you're just kind of wanting a good fun horror movie that's out now. And that is out in theaters as of time of recording this podcast. So that is everything about Bioshock and our fresh picks. I want to thank Seth for joining us again.
No problem. This is a pleasure.
Yeah. And Will, I want to thank you for coming on and talking to us about some Bioshock.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, all right. And more than likely, we will be back sometime in the future talking about Bioshock Infinite. But stay tuned for next week because we're probably talking about something very different, maybe some Star Wars related, but that's a little hint towards next week. But that is everything for today. Thank you for listening, and stay safe out there.